Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latin, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Thank you very much for choosing this as the way to start your day. Thank you very much for tuning into the Situation Room. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the agenda setter on Spice FM, on KTN Home, on YouTube, on Facebook, on TikTok, on X, Radio Garden, everywhere. From the Standard Group Center on Mombasa Road to the world, Karibu Sana. Britam is reminding you, my friend, don't just put money where. No. Put money where money can grow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So there's two options for you, and it's
And they've
great
got
stuff.
trees.
What? All right. The Britain Money Market Fund puts your money in the short to medium term and watch your money grow at 13.5% per year. Fantastic stuff. So if you're in a more of a long-term kind of thing, at 14%, and that's a smart yield account. So you can do that. Get onto the website, ke.britam.com, and it'll give you all the information about what you need to do to make sure that your money can actually grow. Under the mattress, it will not. In a fund like this, it will, absolutely. And we're also saying today, Spice FM, what you need to do. Fund your account with 1,000 shillings, or if you open up a new account, fund it with 1,000 shillings. Next step, take a screenshot of that payment that you've made. And then number 3, DM us across our socials, Spice FM KE, and you could win 5,000 shillings today. I'm going to repeat it. Fund your account with 1,000 bob. Take a screenshot of that payment. DM us, Spice FM KE, across platforms. You could win 5,000 shillings today.
Leo.
Today.
Leo.
Oui.
City, if you were to write the word smart and you wanted to send it to Britain, what's the number? As an SMS.
Just give me 1 second. In fact, give me 3 seconds.
1, 2, 3.
21778.
21778.
Yes.
That's the short code. Send that message. Write the word smart. Don't write at your name.
And don't write your name, please.
Mambo.
Smart.
Sasa.
Yes, VP.
No.
None of those things.
Hashtag RMG.
Yes. Hapa kwetu tuko sawa.
Yes,
smart only.
Smart.
21778.
Yes.
That's it.
Bas. Mambo iko namna hiyo. Sindio?
Mambo iko smart.
All right. So our next conversation is going to be on the broad-based government that the president has announced, and the ministers are about to be vetted. There's a story today that says, after the CSs, the president now will head to the PSs. Okay. So there's still broadening of the government. Sasawa?
No.
Sasawa?
It's not Sasawa. Exactly not Sasawa.
It's not Sasawa that you broaden the government.
No, it's not Sasawa. The broadening of the government, yes, is important, everything that they're saying, but it can't take center stage. When I'm looking at the stance, bang in the middle of the paper, we're saying Ruto to slash PS slots and appoint Raila allies. At the same time, there are pictures of young men and women. There are 8 of them who haven't been found. Some people don't know where they are. Some have died. Nah, it's not okay.
It's not okay.
No, it's definitely not okay.
There's a lot that's happening.
Eric, young people were shot, they died. And somehow this is not something that is holding our attention, and it's not the focus of our attention. As PSS, so what? What do these people actually do apart from spending money? Then we're told CSS. Then we're told ODM has joined. Okay, we've got it. They've joined. But these are the things. These are the human beings who are citizens of this country.
In the meantime.
Yes. They can't be by the way. Nonetheless.
That's a good point to introduce our next guests. Nerima Wako is the Executive Director of Siasa Place. Good morning, Nerima.
Morning.
How are you?
I'm good. I was okay until City made me feel. But it's true. It's true. A lot of young people have passed on.
Yep.
And it's a very difficult period. So I wouldn't say good morning. It's a difficult morning.
It's still a sad morning.
For the many days and weeks we continue to live in this country.
Yep.
Especially someone who advocates for young people.
Yep.
It's a dark period.
There are many who are missing. The Nation today has a story of a young man who went missing for a couple of days and then he was found dead very far from where he was last reported seen. Franklin Ondwari, a man who went missing on the 17th of July during the anti-government protest in Nairobi County, was found dead in a toilet a day after the Nation published a story highlighting his family's predicament. The body of the University of Nairobi student, which will be buried tomorrow, was found hanging inside an abandoned toilet in Ngumo Estate. You know where Ngumo is?
Yes.
Okay. Where is Ngumo City, for those who don't know Nairobi?
Well, if you know the roundabout where, or if you're coming up Raila Odinga Way, okay, if you know of Kenyatta Market, I'm giving you the general geographical area. If you know of City Mortuary, behind this, Ngumo.
Okay.
Okay, if you know there's also a golf club called Royal Golf Club, that area is called Ngumo.
Okay.
Yes.
So this is where he was found, in an abandoned toilet, hanging in an abandoned toilet in Ngumo Estate. On the day he went missing, Ondwari communicated to his family members, telling them that he had been arrested and was at Central Police Station in Nairobi. Where is Central Police Station?
Central Police Station is next to the University of Nairobi.
In the CBD.
Yes, you can't get more CBD than that. If you don't know, there's a place called Norfolk.
It's a long university way.
It is bang in the middle of town.
Okay.
Yes.
Miss Dailin Sabina, the mother of the deceased, in an earlier interview with The Nation, said that when she was informed that her son had been arrested, she called him, but the phone was answered by someone who identified himself as an officer. She said the person informed her that Mahabusu haruhusiwi kuwa na simu. That is, an inmate is not allowed to use a phone. A post-mortem exam on his body, an exercise for which the family picked an independent pathologist, revealed that he had died of strangulation. The Nation is in possession of photos that were taken from where his body was found. In the pictures, his body is seen in a standing position inside the disused, blocked toilet. Sabina said that when she called her son's phone and an officer picked up, one of his friends reached out to the family and informed them that the police were asking for 3,000 shillings to free Ondwari. She said the amount was sent to his M-Pesa number. Edith Nyangarisa, Ondwari's sister, said she spoke to her brother on the day he went missing. We spoke and he informed me that he had already secured his freedom and would be coming home, would call me rather once he arrives home. Emmanuel Inyega, a close friend of Ondwari, said that upon his release, Ondwari went to a friend's shop along Kirinyaga Road and he left his phone charging there. I went to the police station and was informed that he had been released. Even when he went silent, I went back to the same station, but he was not there. This is Inyega. For 2 weeks, the family of the deceased kept searching for him in various places, including police stations, mortuaries within the city, and various hospitals in vain. The matter was reported to the Kasarani police station, and there was an OB number that was given. Onchori was last with his mother in their home in Keumbu, Kisii County in December 2023. So then, he is found hanging dead at a toilet in Ngumo Estate. There's another story of a lady called Purity Njeri who went missing, and they are still wondering whether indeed she has been found or not. Njeri's mother, Ruth Nduta, who resides in Gatanga sub-county, Murang'a, yesterday told the Nation that a senior officer had informed them that she had been found. We were told that she had been found and she was doing well, but since then, it's now 5 days, we have not seen her. Njeri went missing on July 1st when her mother visited Thika Technical Institute where she was studying. Hours later, the mother called, but she hung up her phone, never to be heard from again. Her father, Stephen Getao, told the Nation on the day that she went missing, protests were reported in different parts of the country and it remains unclear whether she was affected. Meanwhile, Shelmith Nyawera Njiro, a woman who went missing on the 17th of July, was found in Uganda in an incident that the family says it is not comfortable to reveal much about. However, family sources said that on that fateful evening, Nyawera was preparing to head to work when she was approached by two men who picked her up. The family revealed that the last place her phone signal was detected was in Malaba, Busia County, where money was withdrawn from her phone. The people who abducted her were wearing masks and armed. It's due to the sensitivity of this matter that the family does not want to talk about it publicly. The source says that once in Uganda, The two men threw her out of the car. They were in and warned her never to return to Kenya. Nyawera sought refuge in a Catholic church near the place that she was abandoned and was linked to a police station in Uganda. This and many other stories of people who've gone missing. Some have been found, some have been found dead, and others are still missing. City, give us the day's proverb.
Yes. Where there is peace, a billock, meaning a sickle, can be used to shave your beard or cut your hair.
Where there is peace, a billock can be used to shave your beard or cut your hair. Again, a billock is a what?
Sickle.
A sickle is a?
Well, it is a tool for harvesting wheat, rice, circular shaped. Yes. Very sharp, though.
Very sharp.
Oh, extremely sharp.
So it's just used to
Yes.
basically just cut them.
You just cut, you round it off and then you tug and it cuts through.
Okay.
Yes.
Nerima, what's your interpretation of this proverb?
I don't think I'm gonna get it right. I always struggle with these proverbs, man.
Another day
Nerima,
to struggle.
You
I
don't, have,
struggle with these things.
you don't have to get it right.
It's my interpretation of
Your
it.
interpretation is fine.
Okay.
Yes.
My interpretation of it, where there's peace, there's safety, because a sickle is a dangerous tool. And I think of it, especially in our context, I think of it as a machete. It is used. It can be used to behead, and in our context, violence. And after even what you've just read, it's very difficult to feel peaceful as a young person or safe in this country right now. You're afraid that masked, armed, technically officers, but they are being hidden by the state, can come pick you and dump you wherever they feel. Yet the main conversation of this country is political power, and life means nothing. So that's my interpretation.
It's a good interpretation.
Apt.
It's very appropriate.
Yeah.
Nerima, as recently as Sunday, the president spoke in Mombasa at a town hall, and he said, in my government, in my administration, there will be no disappearance of Kenyans. And if there's any Kenyan who has disappeared, he'd like people to report that to the police. And he said, his own words, he will be happy to address the issue.
So the president says many things. I actually didn't watch that town hall for many reasons. Also just tired of the rhetoric. And it's difficult to talk about if anyone's missing, yet the front pages of our papers have clearly shown that people are missing. I don't think people understand the gravity of where we are. I've known people who have been arrested who've gone missing. The first picture of the star, that's Boniface Ogutu, a comrade in Kisumu. We didn't know where he was for 3 days, just being moved from station to station. And even with Shad, over the weekend, we didn't know if he was at JKA, we didn't know. So abductions are happening, disappearances are happening. It's our reality right now. So it feels like gaslighting when our president, the symbol of our country, who is supposed to represent unity, represent us, makes it sound like we are living in a fairy tale Kenya, a different Kenya, and it's just make-believe. This is the real life we've been having for the last 4 weeks. And it doesn't look like it's going to slow down. So it's just enough with report and creating this rhetoric. I think he needs to realize that the Kenya he inherited from previous predecessors is a different one. This one, young, yes, access to information more, access to technology even more. So it becomes more difficult to lie. It becomes more difficult to create an impression because they are people who are educated enough to poke through those holes. So I'd say it's enough with the stories. We can see it, it's being reported. There are families who have reported. There's a database online where people are still collecting names. I mean, it's a reality. We need to stop living in this bubble that's not happening.
I've got to ask you these questions in a sequence. To the best of your knowledge, do you know whether the families of the people who go missing actually go to police station to report their
They
kid
do.
missing?
They do, but what's the point?
No, do they do that?
Yes, they do. Even
And they
when
obtain OB numbers
yes.
saying that our person has been missing for the last 24 hours
Yes, that's what you're advised to do.
and they have not appeared in court
No.
and they have OB numbers. So these, you know for sure that there are people that you personally know who've gone missing and the reports have been made to the police.
We make reports. We follow due process.
Okay.
Due
The Kenya
process
National
is
Commission
done.
on Human Rights has also documented cases of dead people during the last 6 weeks and people who have been abducted and reappeared, others who are still missing. When those figures were presented to the president, again, quoting the Kenya National Commission on Human Rights, he once again disputed the figures from that institution. This is a state-funded commission whose main mandate is to safeguard the human rights of Kenyans. And the president said, this institution, I've got to call them out because they keep giving false information. And he actually came down with a number of not 60, but he said 42 people have died so far. So is there a possibility that the president is being misled, is being given the wrong information by those that report to him?
We saw inklings of that when Gachagua basically mentioned after the first and second protest.
The Gachagua referring to the deputy president.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, you want me to say deputy president?
No, there are many Gachagua. Even I know a guy called Gachagua.
That one. And he did mention that the president wasn't receiving intel, but that's not my problem. I think there are people who have a role to play and they should play it. And there are institutions where it's their task, mandate, and job to be able to share this information. And what he does every time he comes and disputes information that is factual is break down the very fact of institutionalism. What we are pushing for, any young person or anybody who supports in terms of the idea of the movement, is the Constitution. We are pushing for better systems. We are pushing for accountability. That's the main thing here. It's not anti-government. What we have here is the government is actually becoming the enemy of the people. We are pushing for the Constitution. So it would be, let institutions do their job. That's what they are mandated to do. And that's why these institutions exist. So when they share with you that information, they are normally shadow institutions that can also come and compare. That's fine. If you want to have your own private company to do that, that's fine. But we will not base decisions on hearsay, she say. We need to base decisions on fact that's existing, that has been collected, that we can verify. That's the age that we live in. We don't live in an age where parents or grandparents used to tell a story by a fire and we assume that what's in their memory is factual. That's not the kind of age we live in. And that's what we need to move forward from.
So the harping on the numbers, in my mind, as I think about that, every time a number comes out and it's disputed, for me, I think that obviously one life lost in this manner, or in any manner for that matter, is one life too many. And what we do with harping on the numbers when it's disputed is, okay, so it was 44 and it was not, it was 64 and it wasn't, is that you take away from the integrity of the issue.
Yes.
When we are talking about that people are actually missing.
Yes.
And that people have been abducted and people have not gone under the rule of law, when it means that if you've arrested me or if you've taken me for a particular issue, you should then present me before a court of law. And I think that issue is what then is not being addressed.
Not at all.
Now, in my mind, when I hear the issues of broad-based government, I think it's myopic to think that it's just people, but it should be issues as well. And so that's why I wanted to pose this question, even as we look at these things. What does a broad-based government encompass to you? And do you think it's the wrong or right way that should be led for, or should be guided into right now?
So when I think of broad base, I feel that the political class has completely lost the plot. And, at the beginning of this conversation, I mentioned that the youth demographic that the president inherited is completely different from what Uhuru had to deal with or what Kibaki had to deal with. Right now, our president has to create 2 million jobs annually just for young people to survive in this country. 2 million. 2 million. So you talk about housing, when you talk about it creates employability, when you talk about foreign investment, and you are not supporting local investors to first gain that opportunity, we have a problem. You cannot buy tickets and passports for 1 million young people to be flown out of this country. The solution has to be internal. And the reason why I have a problem with this, really, young people really do not care who sits in those positions. What they care about is whether their contributions is going to have a ripple effect that allows them to survive. It's not about power. It's not about politics. It's about survivability. Young people are looking for opportunities. That's the only thing that connects them across the board. And so as soon as you cut that access, you are going to have a disgruntled youth. And the youth question, and I've been doing this work for almost a decade now, what I've been screaming about is actually happening today. And it's the fact that even when you look at how young people are managed in this country, if you look at the youth ministries, for instance, youth, every time we elect a new president or they're entering a new term, I'm always like, where are they going to put the youth docket? Youth has moved from Youth and ICT, Youth Gender Public Service Commission, Youth Sports and Art. Every time, it's the only ministry that moves around like it's a kiosk that you can just shift, yet it is the largest population of this country. And why this concerns me is youth is actually devolved. But when you travel to counties, we're in Nairobi County, travel to Kiambu, travel to Machakos, the youth docket is in a completely different office from the next. So it tells you how they manage it at the county level. Sometimes it's youth and agriculture, youth and business. Makueni had its own youth department and youth ministry. Why this is important? Young people are devolved. They are everywhere. But if you deal with young people, like it's a by the way, what happens after years of not engaging and no resource? Kericho County example, there was a youth empowerment fund. That is where a lot of politicians eat a lot of their money. Anything youth empowerment, youth activities, youth mentorship, youth, that's where a lot of money is taken. Then NYS scandal, another example. So when you take majority of the resources and it doesn't get to the majority of population, you can only do that for so long. So that's why I'm saying the president has inherited a different youth. It's a youth that now is larger. It's a youth that now is frustrated. As much as the population, only 10% of it have a university education. 10%. It just needs that small 10% to engage and be concerned about the country's movement to shift an entire country. So back to your broad-based. It doesn't necessarily have to do with tribe. What we're seeing here is kingpins trying to break the country back into its ethnic problem. What the movement brought was unity. And the politicians was like, this is way too scary because we don't know who's leading this movement. We can't have too many people united under the Kenyan flag. This is dangerous. Rather than following what the Constitution has always pushed for, unity. So when you start to divide positions based on personality, based on the ratio of where they come from, you're going to have people who do not understand that docket. We can't have Murkomen in sports because we think he likes to play football, because we watch him support particular teams, or because we think he plays with his kids over the weekend. He's a perfect CS for sports. That's crazy. That's insane that we could actually do that. But in our own companies, we would never do that. I would never hire somebody because I'm like, I really like how they take pictures. They're my communications director. That's insane. But that's actually how our country is being run. And it's like, especially if we look at their tribe, that's even better. They fit perfectly. And if we continue to manage our institutions that way, there will be a definite collapse. If in your own business, you hire the wrong people, and then you mismanage your resource, your company will collapse. It will have to go through bankruptcy. There is no way you can manage that company for more than 3 years at that rate. So why do you think you can run a country that way?
Let's take a break. 27 minutes to 8, Kenya's biggest conversation. Speaking to Nerima Wako, who is the executive director of Siasa Place. The youth factor in President Ruto's broad-based government. Keep it here, we'll be back.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It all begins with a single step.
This is Game of Ninja! I really like it.
Get ready for the ultimate television experience where entertainment, inspiration, and information collide. From heart-pounding dramas,
how can you be so shameless? You've brought this woman into our house despite what happened?
To laugh-out-loud comedies,
Jinga kabisa, utakufa maskini ndugu yangu. You will die angry.
To adrenaline-pumping sports coverage.
Nimoto!
With a diverse lineup of programming curated to entertain, educate, and engage.
Yes! I have nothing more to add.
KTN, welcome home.
Dettol Skincare combines the trusted protection of Dettol with 2 times moisturizers to protect my skin from germs and keeps my skin soft with a beautiful fragrance. Beautiful skin is germ-free skin.
Get ready for incredible savings with our special factory prices on all tile profiles. Enjoy unbeatable discounts on our Gauge 28 matte, Gauge 30 matte finish, and glossy Gauge 30 tiles. Choose from a variety of matte finishes including Germania tile, Jami tile, Espana tile, Roman Jami tile, and Jamiz tile. The Gauge 28 matte was 820 Kenya shillings, now just 745 per meter. And the Gauge 30 matte was 680 Kenya shillings, now slashed to only 625 per meter. And that's not all. Our box Jami tile, previously 575, is now only 499 Kenya shillings per meter. Don't miss out on this limited time offer. Visit our factory outlets in Kitengela or Meru, or place your order today by calling 0729 628 199 or 0740 229 609. Rhino Mabati. Do it best on top.
Junction. But as you go out, it's going to level off, and then touching on the roundabout coming in towards City Mortuary. We're getting into traffic hour. Let's see what happens as we get through it. Talk to us on Spice FM KE on X. # the Situation Room.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
The youth factor in the broad-based government. Our guest this morning, Nerima Wako, Executive Director of Siasa Place City.
When I look at the page of the star that I was referring to earlier on, the question that was in my mind: what sort of country are we? I mean, what sort of people are we? Why do we tolerate so much? Your children are killed, you sit back. Your money is stolen, you sit back. You are lied to, you sit back. And then you complain. Come on, man. I mean, what sort of people are we? We have a constitution. It's clear. We know what to do. Our constitution gave us the power. We say we are a country that's run by the rule of law, and we have a president who keeps saying we are run by the rule of law. Why don't we just bring about the changes that we know we need? Why do we have to sit and complain, and yet young people keep dying every day? And you know for what? Because they dared to say the things that people who are older did not dare to say. And all they were saying was, we have a constitution, we want to follow it, and we want change. That's it. Nothing more complicated than that. What sort of people are we in this country? I mean, what manner of human beings are we?
You know, Siti, it's making me think of that image of a donkey that has been tied to a peg. And then it goes round and round and round. And then when someone finally removes that peg, it still goes around in that same circle. That's what I think Kenya is going through, where we had this constitution, but we still don't believe that it's real. We still act as though it doesn't exist. And then when we have leadership that emphasizes and insists on using organs rather than protecting the people to their own advantage is the problem. So even with Boniface, when we talked about him earlier, he's attending a protest, he's abducted, it's being covered live. People are using their phones to record. Taken to Vihiga, tortured. He's missing. Mind you, we're all looking for him at this point. Then, because of the noise online, he just pops up magically. Then he's now arrested. But he's been beaten so bad, he had to be taken to hospital first before his hearing. He ends up in court. And then DCI, now they start to charge him. And start to charge him with an offense of obstruction. He's still having to go to court as we speak. And so even when people are using their democratic right to be able to protest on an issue that they feel is important to them, that's been provided by the Constitution. And when young people reach out to me from different parts of Africa, they're like, we really look up to Kenya. We feel like you guys actually have systems. Your judiciary, you actually try and follow these systems. The Constitution, people, if they touch term limits, you guys will be out. You'll be like, no. We follow the law here. But then you have some rogue leaders who come in and say, you know what, we're going to take it back to the 90s. Let's go old school. You know, even with the existing of the Constitution, let's go old school and use this machinery and institutions like we used to back in the day. Like we loved it so much that we want to bring it back. We don't think the Constitution is what the people need. Right now, it's a battle of really living the Constitution or just predicting that it exists and put it up on the shelf and say we did that as a country, but really, truly, we don't live that.
Our tolerance brought us here because why is it then that the state has organs in the police force whose job is to abduct, harm, maim, kill? Why? These are your people. These are your citizens who you swore to protect. And the people who are at the very, very, very front of ensuring that there's law and order are the people who are perpetrating it. So you ask, come on, folks, I mean, these are your fellow citizens. These are just people who live in this country like you, want the same things as you. And the very things that they are advocating for will also benefit you. It's not anybody else. I mean, why all this? It's not that I find it mind-boggling. What I find unfathomable is how it is that the very thing that is causing us the greatest harm is the very thing we're tolerating the most. That is the thing.
Sounds like an abusive relationship.
Yes.
A narcissist one, to be exact. And what about the scarcity mentality, where you think this is the only way I can survive. I cannot survive outside this system. So I have to follow through with what power says, because through that, power feeds me. So that mentality of outside of that structure, nobody survives.
You know, there's, unfortunately, history is strewn with examples of people who had that line of thinking. And the thing that happened is, at the most inconvenient time, these things caught up with them. Argentina is famous for this. There's something called the Dirty War, the 90s. Pinochet and his cabal. They were notorious for disappearing people. That's where that word was coined. People disappeared. Meaning you didn't know there was no closure for many families. Young men who were in the police force and who are part of the group who disappeared people. You know when this thing caught up with them? When they are now old men. 10, 20, 30 years later, the cases never went away. Now is when they were being arrested. You've long forgotten what you did. You're a grandfather. You're going about your life, but you were responsible for disappearances. It has caught up with you. It always does. I mean, people think that it doesn't. It does. Now, what was when you sit back, you ask, but what was all that for? Why? Because you wanted to stay in power. Even when people didn't want the sort of power you exercise. The option was, why don't you exercise power that people are willing to accommodate and which they can see is beneficial to them? Because there are such powers where it is given to you and you administer it, in all honesty, on behalf of the people. So they accommodate it and they like it. Better still, situations where when people don't particularly like you and they tell you, you say, okay, folks, this was supposed to be an understanding. If we don't understand each other, why don't I just take a step back? Or better still, what do you exactly want me to do so that I can actually do it? Not turn it around to do it the way I want while telling you I'm doing what you've told me. No, not that. The options are always there, but the problem is options run out. Now that again is what now I dread, because when they run out, then things run amok. The situation in this country isn't a pleasant one. We give the impression that it is, but it isn't. Because these problems we keep speaking about are actually very real. When people who are hungry, world bodies that deal with these things tell you, people who are hungry in Kenya are increasing in number. Meaning, as I said earlier on, it's not that there is food and they're eating a little of it. It doesn't exist. They can't access it. You compare it with the wanton and vulgar display of materialism and consumption. That is what strife is made of. That. It's in your eye and you can compare and you can see. That is meaning there is enough for everybody, but a few people have decided to hog it.
These problems that you describe, City, so well, do you think they are cross-cutting across the country?
Yes.
You think everybody feels them the same way?
They do.
And interprets that as the problem the same way?
They do.
Because on the one hand, yes, we've seen the outpouring of emotion and feeling on the streets in the last 6 weeks.
Yes.
And then in the last 1 week, after the formation of the broad-based government, we have seen again the reaction.
Yes.
Again from the same populace. For example,
yes.
Look at the president's tour of the coasts.
Yes.
And the Rakanidi counties.
Yes.
And the kind of response that you see from huge crowds that are coming out. And the reaction, to whatever points the president was making. Stima, mnataka stima, wacha nione kwa mikono, and they raise hands and they clap and they cheer. Mnataka tuweke jineri hapa ili mtupande pamba, waletee mbegu, they cheer. Tutengeneze hapa kwa mambo ya ferry, they cheer.
They would.
And they say, yes, now that we are forming a government that is all-inclusive. Do you want us to form a government of that all-inclusive? And they say, yes. Is that the same story?
There's, I'm going to answer your question. There's a gentleman called Pavlov. He was a psychologist, and he came up with Pablos Law. And it was based on an understanding of how people get conditioned to a certain way of doing things. Now, we are fortunate as a country and very blessed to have a system where we've understood, as Nerima said, where 10 years somebody leaves, goes. It has been a good thing. We are accustomed to it. It's our trend. We've accepted it. Presidents come, presidents go. To the point where you feel a president must take 10 years. No, they don't actually. It's 5 years and then 5 years. Okay? Now, we are also used to being lied to. This is not a current presidential issue. Other presidents before have said similar things, and they all amount to a lie, because if we've been talking about the same enemies of the people, you're talking about hunger, you're talking about illiteracy, the same problem still persists 6 years down the line, then you've been lied to throughout those years, because it should have come to an end. And because we believe that it is leaders who bring development, when the leader of the country tells you they're going to bring development, what you hear, the cheers, that's hope speaking. Amidst all these things, let's give this hope one last hurrah and say, I believe this thing can work. The only problem is this, that euphoria you see being expressed is not as good a thing as you think. Because when it flips, when hope is dashed, because that's hope, when it's dashed, then real problems now emerge. So you ask me the question, do people want to see change? They do. So whenever there's a manifestation of it, they will want it. Do people like disruptions? They do not. When people protest peacefully, they're happy. When people start losing property, they turn against the protests and they want to go back to the status quo where, yes, they were having problems, but they were not being robbed every day. People are not taking their things. So they'd rather be where they were before.
At least there were pumpkins in
They were okay, Buana. At least you could eat leeks, for heaven's sake, Buana. This manna every day. So, again, it's what they're used to. Countries that have been accustomed to war. We have a neighboring country here, it's called Sudan. They had war for over 50 years. That's what they're used to. So it's very easy for that country to go back into that particular mode that they were in. We are used to this system. So that's what you see us retreating to. When we want change, but want it on certain terms, when we feel that change that we saw coming is actually representing something that harms us, we say, no, this one we know. If this one we don't want
There's a
it.
price for change.
Let's just go back to where we were. At least, yeah, things were hard, but we were not being hassled and bothered. There was no threat that people may come and steal everything I have. That one. And we may not even know it. But part of the reason why people keep quiet is they blame these people. Say, these young people, we thought they were going to do something. Now look at the problems they brought. We, as Kenyans, do not like to be bothered. We want to be in a position where there's minimum bother, and then we can do what we like doing, all of us. That's how we are.
So, Nerima, do you think then the political system is riding that?
It's riding it, but it won't be able to ride it for long. What City mentions is very true. There's still a position where people can be comfortable, but it's getting to a point where those who are uncomfortable are outnumbering those who are comfortable. And since we live in a democratic country, we hope majority. And so when the majority is uncomfortable, they will come and push you out of that comfort zone. And all we're pushing for is let's try and fix things before it gets to that point. The management of public resource has to be done better. We have to streamline the institutions that exist. We have to find better ways of governing this country. And the side road shows is not going to cut it.
And it's possible to have all of these things done without necessarily reconstituting government. There are things that can happen now.
There are a lot of things that can happen now. I think I saw even on KTN on Sunday, there was a group of young people who were, sharing that they wanted to protest the Public Service Commission because they've been interns since 2019. We have seen KMPDU coming out and standing for their medical interns as well. So if you just think in that area, we've not even talked about engineers, the different professions. That just is a sample of what's happening in our country when it comes to young people. So there needs to be a better uptake better uptake of young people. There needs to be a focus on specific pillars in our country and just investing in those pillars and making sure that the resource that's being collected is actually being used in the country. There's still hope, but I think the president missed his chance. When he dissolved cabinet, it was there that he could have actually put across technocrats who understand specific sectors, who can work toward making change in the next 1 year with a specific roadmap and focus. Right now, agriculture should be high on our list in terms of priorities. 80% agricultural land in our country. We've had rain here in Nairobi, but not so much in other parts of the country. Soon, we're going to be talking about a drought. Soon, we're going to be talking about famine. This is something that his CS agriculture needs to be having sleepless nights about in terms of how we're going to mitigate that. But we're busy traveling through the country and saying how they come from this tribe, we are represented. That's what he's doing right now. And so when you have people who are hungry, like Siti has mentioned, they are not going to sleep in their hunger while they are watching you eating meat. I mean,
they'll come for you.
They will come for you. So all we're trying to say is, let's do it the way that has process, due diligence, system, the proper way, rather than pushing people to an edge and then now they're like, forget system. I also want to eat.
I think it's important to bring out maybe insights as to why would there be a reluctance to do this, because like we said, and I've heard a lot of comments about this over the last few days, that there are certain things you can do now. You don't need to wait for 1, 2, 3 to be in place. There are certain things that you can do now. I mean, we spent a good time of this morning talking about some of these budget cuts. I mean, some of the ridiculous amounts of money that are being spent on certain things that could easily cater for some of the gaps that we see in the country today. Why is there reluctance to do it now, do you think?
I think he's grappling between doing the right thing and feeling abandoned. The way our politics is, it's like he's afraid of being a lone ranger, of making the tough choices. Because where he is right now is to make the tough choices for the country, and he's going to lose a lot of friends. So what happens when you come and you start a business? I love comparing a business because I've started an organization. It's the only way I can think about it. So if I started my organization with my friends, and then my friends start to, I'm like, oh my gosh, we started this, it was a great idea, but now I need this to actually work. I have to drop you, and I have to actually hire someone with skill here, or we're not going to go well, we're not going to succeed. So that's where he is. So instead of like dropping this crew and being like, okay, we have a country here at stake, and we need to make better choices, he chose to keep his crew around him. And that's how our politics has been for the last few decades. It has been, you have to enter, you enter with your crew, and your crew is normally your tribe because you're able to bring the numbers and the votes. But where this is changing, there's so much intermarrying that's happening. A lot of young people belong to several tribes. They identify themselves as Kenyan. Even those in rural areas, they're more concerned, again, about access to basic needs and livelihoods. When that's not there, when you don't have even simple drugs in the hospital for a young mom who is 19, who's a parent, you think she's going to come and ask, which tribe are you? And you belonging there, it helps me how? This stops making sense. And that's where a huge chunk of our population is. I hear especially politicians saying, the youth, they need to be calm, they need to be organized, they need to tell us what they want. They have told you several times. And the challenge that I see is they say that Kenya is young, but I don't think they understand it. Like if you walk out here, even in this office here, you just walk out and count how many young people are here. You're surrounded by them. They're everywhere. That is just how many there are.
And yet, we don't see them.
Yeah.
And yet, they're everywhere. They're in your face, they're in your house.
And you don't see
and
them.
yet, you don't see them.
Yes.
So what do we see? Those ancient crocodiles like myself, what do we actually see?
I think that you refuse to see. I think it's something that you see, but you don't see as concerning. I think the older generation is a lot more comfortable than where young people are. They still have 30, 40 years to live, God willing. But you're talking about people who can't see tomorrow.
We've been conditioned. When you've lived through all the presidents of this country like I have, you get conditioned and you get jaded. And after a while, you simply get by. You don't want too many upheavals. That's what happens with age. Yes, the youth have an advantage here, and they can change a lot more than they realize because they haven't gotten to power yet. There's no guarantee they will not be like us. There's no guarantee that they'll not even be even more corrupt. Remember, we changed from people who wanted to actually grow the economy, get into business. There's a community in this country, it's called the Kikuyu, okay? They're actually such a group. Those were entrepreneurs who made the African in this country understand that an African can actually do business, an African can actually build industry, build economic setups. They did. It was an emancipation period. And that's how the economy grew. But then we moved away from that. There's a new group that came in, they're called the Somalis. They're actually Kenyans, but they're called the Somalis. They've gotten into that space as well. But the largest space is occupied by people who think that business equals plundering state resources. So nothing grows. It dies, it's a stillbirth. Before it has moved, it is dead. All that money that is pilfered, if it actually went into business, if it went into doing things, this country, it's not a joke. It's something we would see with our eyes.
Yes, exactly.
But it's pilfered and then it's kept away. So it doesn't do what money is supposed to do.
And that's dangerous.
Yes.
How do you conclude the conversation, Nerima?
Systems. I would say it's about allowing institutions to do their work. Less talking. We didn't ask you to come out and campaign. We were already tired of the campaign period before 2022. We can't be a few years to 2027 and we're still in campaign mode. We are wasting time. This ticking time bomb has exploded. So what you need to be doing is figuring out how to put systems in place to contain it.
Nerima Wako Jiwa, Executive Director, Siasa Place. Good morning, 8 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Hey, yo, good people. My name is Brian Suma. Call me Captain God's favorite host and